that out of the way.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Loose Canon show. Usually that doesn't happen. The first thing people would have heard there is whatever noise you just made. Um, 'Cause usually I'm like, all right, are we ready to go? And then it's nice and quiet, and I get that intro. So that's funny. We're back again. We missed. We're technically a week late because I had COVID last week. Although I'm not actually entirely sure if I had COVID because I tested positive. My wife tested negative, but we were both sick with like the same symptoms. So it's like
Oh,
one
you
of
could
them
have had a
had
you could have had a false negative or whatever.
yeah, or she could have had a false negative, or I could have had a false positive. I don't know which it was. Um, in any
It was
case,
both.
yeah. In any case, I was unable to hold a conversation, and I'm still kind of feeling it, but I think this might be a change this season thing, where like this right here, I would have been like hacking up a lung, uh, in this time frame of which I've been just talking. So we had to push the episode back, and that's going to make today's episode finally, despite the fact that we're a few weeks in, I think 2 weeks into Act Three. This is going to be the Act Two episode. We're going to talk about the things we liked about Act Two, and I think there's a big thing in Act Two that I didn't actually experience at all because I was unaware that there would be like a non-story mission thing to do, and I'll get into that. So I'll need you to fill me in on a character that was introduced. But so, uh, how have you been? It's been a few weeks.
Good. Um, so right now it is in the 50s,
Yeah.
and last week we had like 5-6 days consecutive over 100.
Oof. Is it
What the
really
hell?
humid there?
No, not right now. I mean, it actually
Well, I mean, when
feels
it's over
like
a
I'm in.
hundred.
Oh yeah, no. I mean, we didn't have any rain at that particular time,
Mm-hmm.
and then so like it was pretty dry. But then we had rain, but it was very spotty. So like every single day was 10 or 20 or 30% chance of rain
Mm-hmm.
off and on. And so it just depends on where you live if you're going to get any sprinkling or not. And then for whatever reason, we just got this cold front out of nowhere 2 days ago, and it just like finally hit, and it's like in the 50s, which doesn't happen in this area per se at this particular time of the year.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Usually we get our first, like cold snap right around Halloween every
Yeah.
year. It's been like that forever, but I guess over the last like 5-6 years, it's been erratic. So yeah, so I'm chilling, and it's like 50 degrees, and I'm just like, huh? I don't get it, because normally at this particular time of the year, it would be still in the 90s and
Mm-hmm.
hundreds.
That is insane. I can never deal with that. This is my favorite time of year because it's finally starting to cool down, and it's like, oh, I don't need an air conditioner on. I can wear pants again. It's like it's not getting awful, but it's also kind of bad because you'll have like 2 days of it being great, and then you'll have that spike where it's like it's 87 again, and I'm like, oh no.
Yeah, yeah. I'm curious what's going to happen this winter. I have a feeling we're probably going to get one of those
hmm
insane snowy winters again
Well,
that we've
so
had.
so the like November December winter season of 2023, we got no snow. It wasn't until the winter of 2024, early winter of 2024, that it started snowing like a fuck ton. So I'm really interested to see how it's going to play out this year.
Yeah, here it's always in like the end of January and February is when we get
Mm-hmm.
the snowmageddon,
Mm,
if we ever get one. Which, and I say snowmageddon in Texas, that means like 2 inches of snow.
that's bad enough for you guys, right?
Yeah,
My
that's
biggest
but
concern about
like
2 inches of snow is I go down a big hill that's like a big
uh
windy hill, and I'm like, that can be a little sus. But once I'm down the hill, I'm like, I'm good. It's flat.
we
It's
don't
whatever.
we don't have hills, so it's
Yeah,
cool.
yeah. You don't
It's
have
just
snow or
flat.
hills.
Yeah, it's just flat here. No hills to worry about, so it's good.
That, that's crazy to think about like
Well,
other parts of
like
America.
I tell people all the time, one of the reasons why, wakeboarding is such a big deal on these lakes over here is because you can do it in December.
Year-round
Like
sport.
they have competitions in November and December out on the lake because it's still
Yeah.
like 80 degrees.
I mean, I guess I say I can't do that, but like that's why I was saying, is it like really humid? Because it is insanely humid here. So like our
No, it's
80
not
doesn't
humid.
feel like 80. Our 80 feels like 100. So it's like it kills you when it's hot like that.
Yeah, I hate that. That happens here every now and then, and when it happens, like, no one that's the
Yeah.
problem with Texas is the weather is so rapid. I mean, up
Mhm.
here in Dallas area, it's so random that nobody is ever comfortable. Like, nobody is ever used to anything because it'll get humid like one week, and then out of the blue it'll be freezing cold, and then another week it'll just be dry, arid desert, and then another week it'll be like you live in California and everything's cool. It's like San Francisco all of a sudden, and then you know, it's just weird. You don't know when stuff is going to happen, but if you live in places like Houston, forget about it.
You
Like
know,
Houston is just humidity all the time.
oh, that sucks.
Yeah,
Speaking of weather, back in Beyond Light, Destiny introduced the concept of like snowstorms for Europa, and we haven't really seen that again since that style
that's true.
of event. I'm surprised they didn't go further with it.
Yeah, I'm surprised we didn't get
Huh,
a multitude of different inclement weathers, honestly,
yeah.
because they did a really good job of doing the rain. Remember, like I mean, it's not really rain. I guess it's like the waterfall thing
Hmm.
where it shows up on your visor HUD so that you can
Yeah.
see
Well,
kind of
they
the
had that
water
like in Destiny
cascading.
1 too, right? Like on
Yeah,
Venus. Yeah. It'd just be
they need
like
to
nice
bring
little
that.
touches like that. That'd be neat to see.
Yeah.
That's
What are y'all doing over
well, I
there?
don't want to. Well, unfortunately, what they're doing over there is just getting rid of everybody who can be making these cool effects.
No. Ugh, it's the worst.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
it kind of it's there's like this like, not that I want to dwell on it, but there is this like kind of this like I guess dread, like a sword. Is that what's the sword of Damocles? Am I using that correctly?
Yeah. The thing that like like looms overhead. It could fall at any moment.
Yeah, it kind of feels like that, where it's like, you want to be optimistic, you want to be hopeful, there's still people there that you want to support and all that, and you're just like,
Yeah.
but when is that sword gonna fucking fall? And it's just like they're just gonna sell you like an act. Like, people like to say that Destiny has like nothing to it or whatever, that it's all just like rehash stuff, but like when I sit down and play, I'm actually like, oh, this is a fun activity. This is engaging. I like the enemies, and
Yeah.
I've said before, I'll say again. I think what they brought with Final Shape was probably Prismatic was probably the best power fantasy for me. Like, I was able to have the most fun with my abilities, and now
Same here. Yeah.
I feel like they're starting to scale it back, and they're trying to make it more grounded again. And I'm like, don't do that. Amp it up a little. Like, let that be the bar. You don't go above this, but you try to hit that. Like,
Yeah. With every other subclass too. Let's do that with
yeah,
all of them. Like, let's make it all like, if you're gonna go ham and crazy with these
yeah.
supers and we have all this crap. I do agree that we need to dial back some of the stuff, like the insane amount of mods and the weird, like, redundant crafting we
Hmm.
have. But
Yeah, crafting's been
outside of
getting
that,
some hate.
yeah, I think that the crafting is getting hate by most of the diehards from what I can gather, and I'm not one of them, so I don't know what it's like. But I think I think the I think the main issue or the main point of contention is that you can craft things, and it's really kind of like undoing the fun of getting a random roll, or being able to, play and get that cool thing. And because Bungie, and this is like the meat of it, because Bungie has gone into this crafting thing, they aren't introducing more like cool shit,
Mm-hmm.
cool random rolls that really kind of, make a difference, I guess, because everybody can just kind of go do the same thing. And then, that's the problem with metas, right? Something always rises to the top, but until somebody comes by and swipes that cream off the top and levels it again, nobody's going to go out and search for the new meta. It'll just be the meta for, and that gets boring
Well,
because everybody's using the same thing.
and that's I think that's where if you have everything be like a little bombastic and like amped up, it's like, okay, yes, there's a meta, yes, this is technically the best whatever in the game. It'll melt the boss in 3 seconds faster, but here's a slew of other things that are more fun, and they do effectively the same thing. There's like, make it like
Yeah.
raise other things up. If you raise other things up, then you don't have this does everything that you need it to do, and then there's like this wide gap of like range of like where the next best thing is like 10 times worse than the best thing. If you raised everything up
Yeah.
to be not as good as the best thing, but kind of fill that gap,
Yeah.
you can have more fun options where it's just like, all right, yeah, technically Golden Gun Celestial Nighthawk does the biggest damage, but like you want to throw that arc spear, instead. And it's like, yeah, it doesn't do as much damage, but because you have the arc spear, you also have these other things that are like really fun to
Yeah.
play with, and they complement well, and it's like, yeah, you'll get roughly the same damage, and it's big numbers. It's the big numbers
Yeah.
that you're looking for.
Yeah, that's a good point. You know what? It's something I was thinking about, which it comes up every now and then. I was thinking about how in Halo, Bungie fought to make the game, like, the cool thing to do with Halo was to make the game harder, but it
Hmm.
seems like the cool thing to do in Destiny is to make the game easier.
It's
So
all speed
if
running now. That's all anyone wants to
if you're
do.
not, yeah, if you're not familiar with a Halo, in Halo you get skulls and you go and find them, and then the players have this like mad dash of finding every skull there is,
Hmm.
because what that does is it unlocks new, more difficult modes. So you can play the game on legendary, which is like insanely difficult. Um, but when you click on a skull, and there'll be so many skulls, you can activate these nodes, which are called skulls, and they make the game more difficult. It's similar to what happens in Nightfall Falls, or raids that have like challenge modes or whatever, where you won't be able to have a radar, or you won't have
Hmm.
like as many grenades, stuff like that. And then like the enemies will be harder, or they'll just throw grenades constantly, or all these different things. And so every skull had a different thing like that. So like one skull was called catch, and that meant that every grunt you see on the battlefield would just instantly throw grenades. So it would make your life hell trying to like dive for cover, because there was always a grenade going off. And so, but that made it fun, because if you did it on legendary with a set amount of skulls on, you got an achievement, and then
Hmm.
that unlocked like an armor piece, or that unlocked like a shader or whatever, basically stuff like that. And I it's not going to happen. I don't see how it could possibly happen, but it would be cool
Hmm.
if Bungie did something similar, where, hey, if you go do this thing and you turn on these particular nodes, and you come out on the other side alive, then
Mm.
we'll reward you with this X thing. I like that.
I I think a problem with that when it comes to Destiny specifically is an oversaturation of cosmetic items, because it's such an old
Yeah,
also because it's such an old game. But it's just like they did that with Iron Banner. Remember, like maybe like a year ago now, they had the Iron Banner shader that made like chainmail.
yeah,
and everyone's like, "Oh, I have to do this. I have to grind Iron Banner," and it was just like people would make lose lobbies because Iron Banner was not
Yeah.
enjoyable,
What the
but they
hell,
really
dude?
wanted the shader still. Um, and but so like that's kind of the point I'm getting at, where it's like people will chase a shader that they really want, but even so, it's just like I chase that shader. I don't use that shader. It's and there's like some part of me that understands that. That's like I don't actually need
Yeah.
that. I want it, but I don't actually need that. And I'm starting to like accept that more and more, especially now with the episodes. Uh the seasonal track, instead of being 100 ranks, it's like is it 150 or 200 now to like actually max it out.
Hmm. I don't remember, but yeah, I know what you mean.
Whatever it is, that has officially killed the one thing I would always do in Destiny is I would finish the track. I'm not doing it anymore.
The FOMO.
Yeah, it's too great. It's not fear of missing out. It's I am accepting missing out. Like
Yeah.
I'm not getting those
Yeah.
ornaments, and it's like I know technically I could just play more, but it's just like even if I enjoy playing when I do play, it's like
Yeah.
it's just I
So
don't
what
know.
so what is that? Like what is that that thing that we all enjoyed about Destiny 1? And I think back to Destiny 1 about every week, on reset, I would log on and I would immediately go do the nightfall so that I could get the aura, whatever it was called, I forget now.
Oh yeah,
Um
that was awesome. And it's like
yeah,
stupid things like that would have
yeah.
no pull on me now.
Yeah, and so I had to do that because I knew that if I didn't knock out the nightfall right away, I was going to be losing out
Hmm.
on a major amount of
XP.
XP for the week that goes
Yeah.
to either my faction or to the loot grab that I could potentially gain, because with my limited amount of time throughout the week, every XP mattered, and you only got a set amount of whatever the material you needed was to like enhance things at that particular time, because every
Hmm.
week they only doled out so much, and so the max you could get in a week was X amount. And in order to get X amount the fastest, you had to make sure you did your nightfall right away so that you could get that stupid aura, and yada yada yada. But it was weird because that was my ritual in D1 for years, and that was how we did it. Like we would log on Tuesday, do the thing, and then throughout the week, you did the hard shit, and then throughout the week, you just kind of chilled and like hung out and did the thing. But there wasn't a lot of stuff in there to do. It was just it was way more repetitive, obviously, because there was way less to do in the game. However,
Mm.
for some reason, I considered it more fun. Um, and
Well, I mean,
when you had the ship or you had the shader, you knew what went behind it. It was like this insane grind, right?
mm,
Well, now we're in D2, and as soon as I lost whatever it was in D1, where I knew I wasn't going to get the stupid emblem because I needed the one thing that you do in a raid or whatever to
hmm
complete the stupid emblem, whatever. As soon as that happened, there was like this release. It was like getting the first scratch on your tennis shoe or brand new tennis shoes. You're
yeah,
like, oh
you're
well,
like I'm
screw
done
it
with
now.
this. Yeah,
Yeah,
it's already ruined.
yeah,
I feel like what it is, it's live. It's specifically live service fatigue, where it's like it's not just
yeah,
that we've been playing a game, because like it's it- when you're constantly being told come back, 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 even when you take a break, you still maybe it's like you need to take a break from even seeing people say come back, and because
yeah,
of that you never truly get a break from it.
yeah,
Because when I do, I've taken breaks and I come back and I have a great time for a week. Or like
yeah,
Final Shape, I was all about Final Shape. I was
yeah,
having a blast playing that. I was doing so much. I was playing it a lot, and then it just like, episode Echoes, and that's when I was just like, not that Echoes was like bad or anything, it didn't keep me. It was just around that time I stopped coming back, and then I just kept seeing the come back, come back, come back, the tweets, and don't forget to do this activity, and don't forget to do that activity, and I was just like, I don't think I want anything to
yeah,
do with that activity, actually, now that you mention it.
yeah. No, I get it, and It's weird, and I hate beating the dead horse, but it is because it's a Bungie game. But I
Mm.
always go back to Halo because it's the best thing I can use to compare Destiny to, even though they're completely different games. It is, you know, a similar facet right now. So what amazes me is the limited amount of crap that's in Halo currently
Mhm.
versus what's in Destiny now. Destiny has an insane, just too much stuff in the
Mm.
game, like so much stuff, it's just overwhelming. And in Halo, there's really not anything but this multiplayer mode and some firefights. However, in my mind, both are really fun, but it's not because one has an overwhelming amount of stuff and the other one doesn't have anything. It's not that. It's because, like, for instance, when Destiny does something new, I enjoy it and it's fun. It's like, wow, I get to play this new thing, and then it becomes stale. So I go right back into,
Mm.
the regular modes like PvP, or just do this mission over and over again.
Mhm.
But then in Halo, it's the same thing. I go into PvP. Oh wow, they introduced firefight with these new maps. I'll go play those for a while, but then I'm back into PvP, just chilling, hanging out, whatever. And I'm waiting for the new thing. Um, so what keeps me coming back is just the new thing is fun for a while, but then when I go back, when that's over, I just go back to playing like normal modes, the normal stuff, and I don't really do a lot of like crazy in-depth building or trying to do the raid with only shotguns and stuff like that. None of that. um, but what's funny is I look at the two games side by side and I think, wow, Destiny must cost a fortune
Yeah.
to run this type of architecture versus Halo. Or let's just throw another game out there, Overwatch, right? Overwatch is
Mhm.
absolutely zero in the game other than PvP. You know,
I
there's
mean,
no like,
Overwatch.
I mean,
I shouldn't speak about the game I don't play. I could have sworn they had
Overwatch,
PVE.
they do, but it's not Destiny PvE.
Okay.
It's nowhere in. If you considered Overwatch a comparable PvE game to any other PvE game, then you're laughing. Look, I'm laughing at you because it's not. There's no, like, the PvE in Overwatch is literally only to say, hey, we have PvE too. Like,
Yeah,
there's
like
no
I thought it
PvE.
was just like a I don't think tower defense is the right word.
Yeah, 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 yeah. It's basically that.
Yeah. Okay.
So, that's not PvE.
It's
Get
kind of
out of
just
here.
versus
So,
bots.
yeah, come on. Um, like, Destiny's PvE game.
Yeah, of
It's
course.
got tons of PvE. So anyway, what I say, why I say that is because Overwatch, it, outside of like what happens in the game every, so often when they refresh it, what are they introducing into it? Absolutely zero. You get skins, you get, you know what I mean? You get,
Do you play
oh, they
Overwatch?
yeah, they tune this one particular weapon on this particular hero or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, what are they doing? What are they doing in that game compared to Destiny? But I only bring it up because Overwatch has made a fortune.
Yeah.
But comparatively, the cost to run Overwatch is like, it's like nothing compared to Destiny. What Destiny must cost,
I feel like
or
Overwatch
even.
is on its way out as well though.
Oh yeah, sure. I just bring it up as a case example, but like even Fortnite,
Yeah.
Fortnite's the same idea. Fortnite doesn't have, like, what does Fortnite have in it?
I mean, from what I understand they do a good job of telling like world building stories, you know? Well, I mean, and you gotta give them credit for that because they do from
Oh no,
from
I
from
don't.
from
I
what I've
don't. I'm
seen.
not. Look, I'm not taking anything away from the cool shit that they put in all of these games. I'm only saying, comparing them to Destiny, it's
Yeah,
like, here's three beans in your palm versus a freaking bag.
yeah. Well,
They might be
yeah,
cool beans.
I
I don't
yeah
know.
I see your point though. I do. Um, in any case, would you like to get into the lore card this week?
Yeah.
So, brought to you from the Destiny Armory, defined as our weekly lore card.
Here we are. All right, so this was the weapon you got at the end, when like they finally introduced it into the game because we did the thing and then you get this stupid gun. So um it's really kind of cool because it kind of summarizes what we've been doing in Echoes, this particular season of Echoes. So the gun is called Speleologist. Um, a lot of people already know what this is, but it's basically somebody who explores and does the science regarding caves, or going into any kind of like cave,
Oh,
yeah, cave-like feature, or going down and digging up new, uh, stuff, finding new organisms, life forms, blah blah blah, right?
yeah. I absolutely did
So,
not know what a speleologist was.
oh, well, like spelunker.
Yeah, that's why I said, "Oh." It dawned
Yeah,
on me
yeah,
like
yeah.
spelunker.
Yeah, yeah. So a speleologist is a scientist who studies caves, including their formation, structures, and ecosystems. They explore caves, collect samples, and analyze data.
Hmm.
They often discover unique and previously unknown species of plants and animals within these caves, which is very true. There's some really cool stuff that, like, we continue to discover new life forms and organisms even to this day. So a speleologist, they research and study the cave systems, but in this field of study known as speleology, it encompasses of various aspects, including the formation, structure, and ecology of these caves. They will investigate the geological process that create the caves, but more importantly, they will study the biological ecosystems within those caves and their historical and archaeological significance. So what they can uncover with these types of caves is, why are we here? What happened millions of years ago? What kind of organisms existed way back when? Because I don't know if you know this or not, but certain, you know, remains have been found of animals and life forms that were on this earth millions of years ago,
Hmm.
because they fell in a cave. and uh and so when we go hunting and looking for stuff in these caves, we found like really cool, huge animals that existed a long time ago during maybe the ice age or whatever, that got trapped in a cave or fell into whatever and got washed into a particular cave formation, and yada yada yada. So
Hmm.
not only is that cool, but there's also the the work in these cave environments where they can collect the samples and analyze the data, which will like unlock the complex interactions and factors that surround these subterranean systems. So not only will they encounter interesting animals that fell in these things, they'll be able to kind of understand, why does this cave's ecosystem look the way it looks, or why does this particular organism thrive in here, and all that, whatever. Um,
Hmm.
I kind of put a picture on there which showed like their gear, which is really cool because they get to wear like some pretty cool helmets, and they vary in a lot of different ways. Of course, they get like cool hiking sticks that have attachments and whatnot, and then cool lights and analyzing gear because they have to pack as light as possible, but they have to pack interesting equipment that can fold up or interlock inside of itself so that, instead of going down there with, tons of backpacks, you can go down there with like a streamlined set of gear and one simple small backpack, because those places are tight, right? You can only go in there with certain amount of I mean, you can't be a huge dude trying to go down into a really tiny thin spot. I mean, you're going to get trapped and die down there. I mean, there's been horrible, instances where people got trapped in caves, or,
Oh,
not even just
don't even
that.
go down
Yeah,
that road.
yeah.
Holy
I'm
shit,
not. I'm
those are
not going to.
terrifying.
Yeah, yeah. I couldn't imagine. Like if you're claustrophobic, forget about it. Right?
Oh.
Yeah. So anyway, they get cool gear, but this is really cool. The payoff is neat because they'll discover these unique and previously unknown species and plants and animals in these caves. For instance, some cave dwelling organisms have evolved special adaptations to survive in the dark and nutrient poor environments. So, like, if you're familiar with some of these animals or have heard of, there's stuff like, uh, cave crickets, right? You know, they're like a really strange looking cricket. Um, then there's cave fish or um, Texas blind salamanders. They're blind because they don't need their eyes anymore. It's so dark in a cave that they literally don't need their eyes. So they evolve different types of sensories to navigate the cave systems and see, basically, right? See by touching and feeling or whatever. There's cave spiders, beetles, yuck, right? Um,
Hmm.
but what's cool is that, like, these animals have evolved these um, uh, extreme environments, and we call animals that evolve and survive extreme environments. We call them extremophiles, and that's a Destiny word too, back in D1. But extremophiles literally are the organisms that have overcome very extreme circumstances and somehow survived and adapted and evolved into a new type of organism or life form that can sustain, like, this particular really insanely hot temperature environment without dying, or these, like, frigidly cold environments without dying. And so one of the things that they've been even done is they've taken certain organisms that became extremophiles from certain places, like even a cave. They'll find this one particular organism and they'll see how well it does in space. And they do remarkably well in space where there's no air. It's ridiculously cold and stuff like that. And they'll live for quite a while, and stuff like that. So there's these neat little things that could unlock that missing thing that we might need to, go into an extreme environment ourselves, or whatever. We could learn a lot from these particular organisms and animals, to even maybe enhance ourselves, or find equipment that will mimic something that we've learned from biology. So biology is really cool in that regard because we can learn so much from organisms that have basically fought for survival and unlocked some new adaptation along the way. So if you ever want something to evolve, put a life or death scenario in front of them, and then they either adapt or die. You know,
Mm.
so it's interesting to see what survives. Um, so anyway, it's funny because the flavor text on this machine gun is from Ida, and she's the scribe of House Light. But recently in the lore, she's been kind of like talking in a way that's similar to like what speleologists would do when they're uncovering and spelunking and looking for new stuff. And Failsafe has even sent us on these, like, you know missions over and over again to go down into Nessus and like figure out why the Vex are doing what they're doing. So we've been gathering up, what are they called? Samples
Oh
of,
yeah, like
yeah,
the
yeah,
radiolite samples.
yeah. So we've been gathering all these samples, but we've also been gathering like fauna and different organisms nearby because we need to understand the environment for whatever reason. And then we even got a frog, which everybody has been going crazy about this frog. Uh, and that we even made a terrarium for this frog on the helm.
So
And
that's
you can
that's
pet the
the
frog.
thing. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, you can pet the frog. So that's pretty cool. But yeah, we're spelunkers in this particular season, and obviously we would have weapons that are themed around that type of thing. So here you are, speleologists. It was the last weapon we got of all those, and it kind of summarized everything that we got before, because all the other weapons were thematically named with you know similar types of things, just a little bit more specific.
Hmm.
I like how they do that kind of thing in these games. They really do a good job of, like, hey, what are we doing right now? Oh, hey, well, let's name everything this thing because that's basically what we're doing.
That's the theme of this time period.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool. Um, I mentioned at the beginning of this episode that there is a thing that I did not account for, and that was actually the frog.
Oh
So
crap! I blew
I
it.
found I well no, I have the frog.
Okay,
Because like it's part of the story missions. You go and you find this live specimen or whatever. Um,
which is poisonous, by the way.
well, so sorry, a lot of bots today.
Uh
Um,
oh.
so we go and we find the specimen, and Failsafe is all excited about it, and they're all like, I love this frog, so much, blah blah blah." And it's it's cute that we get a frog and that Failsafe is excited for it, but then it's like, go get buffo treats, buffo
Yeah,
bites.
yeah.
And I
Buffalo
was like,
bites.
Buffalo bites? What the fuck? And then I just kept going on with the story missions. So I didn't progress anything with the frog. And I wanted to ask you, what do you actually do with this frog?
You just pet it.
You just pet it? You're
Yeah,
saying you have a terrarium for it. It lives on the helm
yeah.
now?
Okay, so when you go get the frog and you show back up, Failsafe is like elated about the frog, and she calls
Yeah.
it Captain whatever.
Jacobson, yeah.
She named, yeah, Captain Jacobson. Which, if you're familiar, like the Exodus crash, all the
Mm-hmm.
anyway. So Captain Jacobson is the frog now. It's got a name. It's cute. She loves it, and so in the helm, when you get a particular resource or material or whatever, you go over to that area
Uh-huh.
and you do the thing, and then all of a sudden this big engram shaped terrarium shows up with little Captain Jacobson inside of there with like a little bit of like, a little bit of stuff in
Okay.
there that it's hilarious. And you can pet them. You
So
can pet
it's kind of like the fish tank from Season of the Deep.
Yeah, yeah, but you can pet the frog instead. Like I don't. It's funny because it's not like when you pet the dog. You pet the dog, you literally like kneel down and pet the dog. This one, you just pet the frog, and you get an achievement for it. By the way,
Ah, I
if you
should go
pet the
do
frog.
that.
Yeah,
I need that achievement. But yeah, this act was pretty fun, I think. I
yeah,
really like that we keep going deeper and deeper into Nessus. I think that's really awesome
yes,
that
yes,
as you said, spelunking. I think that's a really cool concept, one that wasn't really explored previously. The act 1 ends with the whole crisis that Saint was given by the conductor about the validity of
right.
his existence and stuff. And that kind of brought up a number of questions that people have had, where like I think we mentioned one or both of us. I don't think I did. I might have said that I did, but thinking about it more, I don't think I did say, is Saint just a copy? But like
Yeah,
so in Act 2, the end of Act 2, we'll try to do it chronologically, but I want to talk about some of the controversial things that came up as they came up. In Act 2, we actually go and confirm that our saint's body is still in fact there. And so um it it brings the question of like, so our saint comes from like another timeline, air quotes, or is a manifestation of the infinite forest. Which would be your interpretation of those two, or a third, if you have a third interpretation of what Saint
I
is?
kind of, I kind of gathered that it was from another uh, timeline with the sundial and whatnot and all that stuff.
Okay. Okay.
So it was like a
Because
parallel timeline that we grabbed him out of, where when we could have grabbed him out.
yeah, yeah. So a very similar Saint 14, different
Yeah,
timeline, etc.
yeah.
Um so that is the acceptable way that this could have played out. But I was seeing people like talk about if Saint was manifested by the infinite forest, which kind of goes back to the question I know I've had ever since the infinite forest of how
Right.
real are the things in there? Can they actually just come
Right.
out and be living? It's like, so the infinite forest is able to duplicate a ghost
Yeah.
because
Well,
Saint comes
the
out with
scary thing is
Geppetto.
is like we even had this thought about Osiris when we first encountered him. Like, is he
Mm-hmm.
just a copy? Is he just a
Mm-hmm.
manifestation of the infinite force? But one thing that we got that really, like, and I'm not, I'm just supporting what you're saying. Like,
Mm-hmm.
if what if, right? What if that was the case? One thing that we got that was kind of scary was they said originally that the infinite forest was this area that was locked in and of itself, and it had no it had no branches outside of what it was, right? It didn't like exist anywhere else but there. But we got
Mm-hmm.
this particular mission where we had to go find the it was the seed, whatever the damn seed was called on Mercury, and somehow it showed up in a different area. And that was remarkable because in the lore they brought it up. I can't remember who it was. I think it was like Cora. Somebody said, oh shit, there's a simulation seed here where it's not supposed to be. That's
Mm-hmm.
only supposed to happen in the infinite forest. This might actually mean something. And so when that happened, I was like, oh God, what does that mean? Does that actually mean that all of that infinite force is somehow outside of itself and it always existed everywhere? And, here we are, questioning if Osiris is in fact the real Osiris. And, oh, now we got to worry about Saint too. I mean, it's just like, oh shit.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, it still could be what you say. So I don't, I always leave a little bit of room for the possibility of crazy shit like that happening because
Yeah.
you never know. You never know.
Yeah, they could it's whatever direction Bungie decides to go with it, right? Like,
Yeah.
so so the idea that we're so then here's another issue that I didn't see anyone directly say, but I was thinking about. Here's another issue in the whole season, I think it was Season of the Dawn, where we save Saint. We encounter Saint on Mercury saving refugees that I don't think we actually see the refugees that are on Mercury for some reason from House of Dusk who shouldn't exist yet. And that was its own thing where it's like, how is House of Dusk
Yeah.
on Mercury? What the fuck's going on with that? Mercury in
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
past. What the fuck's going on with that? Uh,
Yeah.
and it was supposed to be that our guardian, inspired Saint to become the hero that he became, which eventually kind of leads him down the path to going into the infinite forest and getting himself
Right.
killed. So that's why it was the perfect paradox, because we inspired him to get himself killed, that then which inspired us to go inspire him
Yeah.
and save him, right? So it's like
Yeah.
this big looping nonsense, right? So
Yeah.
grandfather
Yeah. And
paradox,
it's
I think it is.
paradoxical. It's
Yeah.
paradoxical because, it like, in sci-fi, um, and in storytelling, the paradox is basically, well, how could that be? Because if one thing happened to make another thing happen, but you're saying this happened because of the one thing happened, well, the one
Yeah.
thing never existed in the first place because this last thing happened, then that's a paradox. So, like, for instance, we all thought the original paradox was the shotgun,
Mm-hmm.
existing, and then we learned recently, because Bungie basically spelled it out for us with Saint 14. The whole paradox in and of itself was our relationship with him and
Yeah.
his whole existence.
Yeah.
So
But so
yeah.
then it's like, if we didn't actually save our saint, then it's not really a paradox, right? Because
Right.
all we did was time travel a little bit and inspire a saint. We don't know which saint we inspired. We just
Right.
inspired a saint to go to his death, and then we saved
Right.
another one. And it's like, okay, well, I don't know. That's just kind of,
Right.
I
Right.
don't want to say it
Well,
deflates the story of it a little bit, but like,
it does.
I
It
feel
does. And I think
differently.
it does. And I think the reason why they had us go and basically save Saint the second time was
Yeah.
so that he could get, I don't want to say like overwritten or like, the
Mm.
flash drive was was recopied onto another flash drive with all of the other flash drives information. So now
Mm.
it's kind of like what happened to uh, Crow when
Mhm.
he got all of his information of who he was when he was Aldrin from Savathun. And now it's a similar story where Saint 14 has all of the information of the other version of himself that we all considered to be the actual Saint 14. And so now Saint 14 is technically our Saint 14, but also a little bit of the other Saint 14 that we got.
Yeah.
So
Um,
Osiris makes this clear because he says to Saint, I don't care what it is or what you consider yourself to be, copy,
mhm.
whatever. I know you. I know my saint. You are my saint, top and down. Basically, I love you. You love me. More fun stuff like that. And then, Saint 14 kind of has to wrestle with that demon, but then ultimately comes to the acceptance that, yeah, you make sense. You make sense, Osiris, and I get why we're together because we were always meant to be together. Lovey-dovey stuff, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, it's like it's just such a hard pill to swallow though,
yeah,
knowing that Saint is from like another timeline, because that means there's another Osiris living without his Saint, and our Saint just kind of settled for the first Osiris that he was able to get back to, and
yeah,
that feels kind of weird. Like other shows and stories have done this, like in Rick and Morty. If you watch that, they fuck up their timeline or their universe because it's not time travel.
yeah.
They fuck up their
That's the famous
universe,
one.
and they go to another universe where Rick and Morty just died in an accident and just kind of step into their role. And they do that like 3 times throughout the series. And so like with that, it's okay because it's like they're consciously choosing to step into the role of another Rick, of another Morty. But with Saint, he kind of didn't get to have that choice,
Yeah, you're
and
right.
it feels kind of weird, like a little almost like a little emotionally abusive of Osiris to be like
Sure,
I love you, because like Osiris is able to accept that his saint is dead, and he's like, but I have another one and it's good enough for me, and it's like, but Saint, he comes out and just accepts that it's his Osiris, that it's his timeline, and doesn't know better, type of
yeah,
thing. And Osiris does know better, as it appears to be now. Like Osiris was like, has come out and he's like, I've always kind of thought that you weren't my real saint. It's like, whoa, buddy, what the
yeah,
fuck? Like, I know it's only
yeah.
been like 2 years, but it's been like 2 fucking years that you did this, and you've had this thought and not told him. Like, it, it
You know
kind
what
of
though?
it kind of
It's
rubs
like
me the wrong way.
it's kind of a popular trope in sci-fi and movies right now, especially if you look at like the Marvel Cinematic Universe
Uh,
currently, with whatever they're doing right now. With this is the actual timeline. This is the sanctimonious timeline that we're going to protect, and everything else is just kind of like not really the timeline or whatever. Um, there is this
that bugs
really
me.
old. I know it bugs a lot of people, because it's weird. It
It's
is weird,
weak.
but
It's weak
it,
storytelling, is what it is.
maybe.
They're
So
too cowardly to let other timelines exist like independently, that they're like, this is the prime timeline. And it's like, that's fine. You can have the one timeline that you're telling the story from, and that's fine. And then let other timelines be their timeline, like they
I
don't have
agree. I
to they
agree
don't
with
have to
that.
like
I agree
bend
with that.
over to yours.
I agree with that. And then here's something that um might help, right? I don't know if it'll help or maybe it'll make it worse. But
I think it'll help.
there's a really old concept that across time and space and throughout the universe, you are always you, connected to all the many other multifaceted versions of yourself in every other existence outside of the one you're currently consciously aware of. Now that might be weird and hard to digest, but if you just simplify that and think, oh, well, maybe Saint 14 is technically himself because he's always himself, because no matter where Saint 14 is, what time he is, where he is, what he's doing,
Hmm.
what version of he is, he's always Saint because he exists in all those different timelines, and he is that Saint, just, you know, on that
And
other
I
on
generally
that other
agree with
branch.
that. I do
Yeah.
generally agree with that, and that is something that Saint actually says at the very end of Act 2, where you go and you speak with him. I think he says like, "I am Saint 14. I am all the Saint 14s. They are all
Yeah.
me." And he's like, "This is my identity that no one else gets to like infringe upon." And it's like nice. That's empowering, and it kind of eases off of the issues I was having with Osiris there, kind of not informing Saint of the possibilities out the gate.
Yeah.
Um, but like
However,
it,
the thing that can be damaging is, well, now that opens up a whole nother Pandora's box. Like, what if my character, who is an exo, decided to go down there and then, use that same flash drive and just use those copies and copy them over my guy? Can I be Saint 14?
I think it would be more of
Or would I be both of them, me and Saint 14?
I think it would be more of like I don't even know how to talk about that.
See what I
There's
mean? So
there's like no
that's where
technology.
brains get broken in these types of scenarios, because
Yeah.
paradoxically, to use the word from earlier, that shouldn't be able to happen.
Like imagine because there has been a TV show. I wish I could remember the name of it. But imagine if TV shows were always filmed in like the main character POV. So you're not watching a play. You are the main character living the life. And then imagine
Yeah.
that you're not just watching an episode, you're downloading years of life, and how
Yeah.
damaging that would be to your sense of self.
Right.
and
Yeah.
and maybe not damaging, maybe it would be enlightening to like actually be able to walk a mile in someone else's shoes, like. But
Maybe this conversation is damaging people.
well, it's not helping
and
me.
they're
Like I have issues with these types of things, like
sure.
genuinely, like my
That's why they're not
perceptions on
popular. That's
things.
why they're not popular sci-fi tropes.
Yeah.
You know what I
like
mean?
I'll let everyone know like a little secret about me. There are times where I have this like kind of flash, right, like in my brain, where I'm like, I just died. Like there's a part of me that's like confirmed I just died. Like I'm driving my car and I'm like driving near the edge of like the a cliff or whatever, like the road. And there's like I just feel this like memory that didn't happen, that I rolled over, like a car cut me off, I swerved, I rolled over and I died. And I'm like, I just died right now, but I'm still driving my car. And I'm like, but
Crazy.
you know, both can't be true. And so sometimes when I really like stress about it, I wonder, did I die? But now there's the offshoot of where I didn't die, where like every action has its opposite. And that makes me sad to think about how many times I've died and I'm still alive, but like I have versions of my family who've grieved me dozens of times because I do stupid things.
An infinite amount.
Yeah,
And so, like, that's technically what Maya and Chioma's basic, um
I'm
you
so
know
excited. I hope
yeah.
I have not played Act 3. So I don't know how it's gonna go. And feel free to
Oh,
spoil if you
whoops.
want. If you
Okay.
get into it, it's feel free. I'm not gonna be
I
upset.
won't I won't do the I
Um,
won't do the final thing, but basically, imagine Chioma and Maya as they are in the Vex network, whatever,
mhm,
lamenting one another's, current versions of themselves in whatever manifestation they are within the
mhm,
Vex network copy, blah blah blah. Think about all the different Chiomas and think about all the different Mayas that are sitting there lamenting the other, whatever, and all of that stuff. And just imagine that, and then have to come to terms with uh, that's not my Chioma. That's not my Maya.
Well, that was
That's
something in the lore where
yeah.
Mayas were looking for their Kioma.
Hmm.
My Kioma.
Yeah. Oh, and then there's another thing about the N712 that came up, but anyway.
But really quick, before we get too far off of the concept of another saint being in the infinite forest, I wanted to ask you. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna read one of my favorite entries from a lore book from like a year ago, 2 years ago. Oh my god. Oh,
What?
4 years ago. That is awful.
We're old.
Oh,
What
that
happened?
that hurts. In any
You know,
case,
we're getting ridiculously close. Tomorrow is the 10th year anniversary of when Destiny went live for the
oh
very first
yeah.
time. Yeah. So
Oh,
tomorrow is 10 years of playing this fucking game since
yeah.
it launched on September 9th.
No wonder I can't remember shit anymore.
It's 10 years,
It all
dude.
it all it all gets wrapped in with like what actually happened, what was a theory, like what did I just make
Yeah.
up one day? Like it's all
Yeah.
fucking blurred together now. In any case, back in Season of Arrivals, when all the planets were going away, all the vendors had their own little stories in the book Duress and Egress, where they all kind of prepared for the Black Fleet in their own way. And so Vance's preparations lead him to closing the Infinite Forest and going inside, closing it behind him when he goes inside. And
Yeah.
so he's in it, and there's a few really cool bits in this final entry of the book titled Vance Passeri, if I'm saying that correctly. And so I'll read this like last bit here. Silence. The forest was sealed. Tentatively, Vance felt his way across the enormous stone he stood on. At the same time, he skipped effortlessly from stones as if he had done so countless times before. At the same time, he soared. He was moving in every direction, falling, laughing, singing down every path into every reality, spreading his message of hope. And the original, the true Vance, felt his infinite parallels erupt from him. He felt them bear him up as they passed. Thank you, he said wordlessly, unable to breathe from joy, and felt 100,000 touches of reassurance. He found he was weeping. There, in the swirl of his golden echoes, Brother Vance lifted his voice and began his song. Some hope for, which is, of course, uh, the ever the never ending joke of destiny. Some hope for. His own voice
Yeah.
answered him from behind. The future, it continued. Vance leapt toward it. He recognized the feel of his own cloak, and his hands found its throat. Its form twisted, turning cold and sharp beneath his hands. It threw Vance on his back, but he held on. He pushed his hands up the thing's face, under the blindfold, and dug in with his thumbs. It howled. How unfortunate, Vance thought to himself behind his wide smile, that you still have eyes. So
Yeah.
in this we have three important things happen. One is the hope for the future joke. So two very important things that happen. The first is he spreads himself out, and so that could be interpreted as this is like saint and another saint, and then it says how the true Vance felt his infinite parallels erupt from him, but that's not the case, because it mentions there in the swirl of his golden echoes meaning the echoes that Osiris implemented in the forest, which the infinite forest, which apparently is not doing something with the light. Somehow Brother Vance is also able to replicate this, where they basically make like an infinite forest generated golden copy of themselves to explore the forest, and then they keep all the information that these echoes see. So these Vances were made by him and are not different timeline Vances. However, when he sings Some Hope For, his own voice answers from behind him saying the future. That's the copy that Vance fights. And as they fight, he digs his thumbs into the copy's eyes and says, how unfortunate that you still have eyes. But it
Yeah,
also says it goes under his blindfold. So both Vances have been blinded, but our Vance no longer has eyes. The other Vance has just become blind. So it's like this is a Vance from a different timeline. This how I'm interpreting it. This
sure.
Vance is from a different timeline who had similar but not exact experiences, who also went into the forest, and now they're duking it out for some reason. And so I always like wondered, I was like, what does this mean? You know, ever since Season of Arrivals, when we had this, when are we going to get the Infinite Forest back? When are we going to have these evil doppelgangers come back? Type of thing. And so now I want to ask, do you think that Saint 14 accepting himself, all that is kind of the evolution of the story, or do you think that this thread has not been tugged yet?
That's a good question. I mean, part of me says maybe the thread hasn't been fully tugged yet.
Just a little, not fully. It was teased. It was like, hey,
Yeah,
remember?
yeah,
Like a little
yeah,
thrum. Okay.
yeah.
I hope it's
I
not the
agree.
end of it. I hope that we see more of it.
I do too. I mean, I like so in a nutshell, if you just take things like on a day-to-day basis within the storytelling and within Destiny, and you kind of like try to compartmentalize what the character perspective was at the time, right? Like those
Hmm.
particular moments when the character believed this about so and so and whatever. Um, I like the way that we're constantly having to headbutt all of these really like what would almost seem controversial or really hard to deal with personally, these types of like you know these weird um you know situations we find ourselves in, or the characters around us find themselves in. And so we're kind of like we're having to come to terms with a lot of like really serious things that
Hmm.
most people go on their entire lifetime without ever having to consider some of these things, you know um, so it's almost like a forced empathy
Hmm.
that we're all getting in this game, where we're constantly having to look at things from other people's perspectives and reconcile what we would almost deem moralistically um bad behavior or good behavior, stuff like that. But then we have to flip the other side of the coin and deal with the fact that, where did that come from? Why was that a thing? And oh shit, there's another side of this coin. And
Hmm.
you thought this was a good thing, but it doesn't necessarily mean it was good. It was born out of a bad thing, and this bad thing was born out of a good thing. And at the end of the at the end of it all, it was just survival. Well, is it okay to just survive and annihilate everything around you because you're fighting to survive? Those types of things. And we're constantly headbutting these like dilemmas that the character and our guardian even get into. And so that's why I say that we're almost like getting fed a forced empathy within the lore of this game, because we're constantly having to doubt or second guess or question every little perspective and thing that happens within this game,
Hmm.
because it's fun. Like, it's fun. Obviously, it's entertainment. It's entertaining to do that. Like, what if I made Saint look like a demon and told you this whole story of how he used to just go around on a rampage and kill Fallen, and the children of the Fallen's perspective on Saint was just like, oh my God, horrific, right? What
Hmm.
if I told you this other story about the Fallen, where they didn't actually eat babies, human babies? They were just, surviving. And that was like a rumor that was spread. And the only babies they might have ever ate were dead ones already. And that was just because they needed food, and they were eating dead stuff. They were scavenging, like these weird things that we have to be, you know, wrestling with constantly in this game. So going back to what I was originally saying, sorry for the long blabble, uh, it makes me kind of just almost compartmentalize every little thing that happens in this game
Mm-hmm.
to specifically that instance in time, if you even want to call it time in this game. But when did this happen in the game? When did this happen in the game? What are we currently dealing with now in the game? And
Mm-hmm.
why does that matter with this particular character, given the history we have regarding what they used to do or who they were, right? So right now, Saint 14 is in front of us. And I think it was almost on purpose that they planted, like what you were just onto, they planted that doubt in your mind. Well, what if, you
Mm-hmm.
know, what if there's this whole other thing that could be going on with Saint 14 that we just aren't consciously aware of? And so that makes you kind of like leery and almost like not trust that, everything's going to be okay. And so you go on forward thinking, oh shit, well, something bad could still happen with all of this, right?
Mm-hmm.
uh and so I'm not going to spoil it, but there is a little bit of that happens with Maya and Chioma at the end of the season 3.
Well, yeah. So then, before you spoil it, let's just run through, and I'll say kind of where I was leaving off with Act Two, because, like I said, I haven't played any Act Three. The only thing I know about Act Three is there's an exotic auto rifle that's very good. I don't even know what it looks like. I just saw
Yeah.
a tweet saying how broken it was. Um, so Act Two, basically, you have Saint dealing with his thing about being the real one, and then you, Failsafe, and Ikora are trying to track down the conductor, who we now understand is the big bad. And along the way, we find Captain Jacobson the frog, and I guess you can also play with Captain Jacobson. I did not. And you're just kind of going through the motions, talking with Failsafe. You upload nano machines into the Vex network, into the radial area, to try to like track everything down. And that's when Failsafe realizes the best way to do this is actually to find like an uncorrupted source of knowledge from the Vex that
Yeah.
was not corrupted by the conductor. And the only source of that, the best source of that, best accessible source, would be the body of Saint 14's mind. So the Saint 14 that we found in the Infinite Forest even more years ago than that last entry that I just read. And so they access the Infinite Forest by going even deeper into Nessus and with Saint's blessing. So you go into the Infinite Forest with Saint and Osiris. You find his body. Saint kind of downloads himself, and it's pretty traumatic at first. But they end it on a nice note where the last thing Saint 14 remembers after losing Geppetto, which kind of comes back to the whole like, are they able to simulate? Is it another timeline? After losing Geppetto and then losing himself, the last memory Saint actually has is a memory of himself with Osiris and bringing Osiris a cup of tea, and Osiris drinks it. It was too hot. It's like just like a nice little like
Yeah.
the simple life memory. And then
Which was
you
interesting.
fight. Oh, go on.
Yeah. No, I was just going to say, which was interesting because that was the moment when, Saint 14 and Osiris remembered the first time he said he loved him
Mm-hmm.
differently, because
Yeah,
the circumstances were a little bit different in the two
yeah.
different versions of Saint.
That's a good point. So it's not it's still love. You still love him. It's just
Yeah, it
the
doesn't,
minor
and that's what
things.
Osiris
Yeah,
basically says. He's trying to reconcile
yeah.
Saint 14's doubt, and by saying, it doesn't matter like what hand you were holding the cup in or
Mm-hmm.
what was on the table when you did it. The fact is that in both instances you did it, and so like you're my saint. Like you'll always be my saint,
Mm-hmm.
regardless of what color T-shirt you're wearing or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
He's basically saying, while the little things matter, they don't matter that much,
yeah.
I guess.
And so we leave them because Osiris, is not the best equipped for mass combat, and naturally the Vex are launching a counterattack. And in a very narrow, very limited space, you have to fight a lot of fucking Vex. It was actually kind of challenging for me. I've talked about my build before. It's big damage. It is not ad control, and so I kind of struggled. I had to just like dump all the damage immediately, and once I figured out like positioning on that, it was really easy. But when I was like trying to handle damage and ads, I was struggling. Um, and you leave the infinite forest, you go back to the core of Nessus, which that might, I feel like, because I was confused for a second there, I feel like other people were probably confused, because then your ship comes in to get you out of there, and it's like, well, how did your ship arrive? And it's like, you're no longer in the infinite forest, you're just deep in Nessus now. Which is still kind of, how did your ship get that deep in Nessus? But don't ask too many questions.
Yeah,
Um,
that's a good point. How the fuck did we get the ship way down hell down there?
it can fly, so naturally it can go underground.
Oh my god. Well, it does go underwater, I guess, too.
Yeah,
We
or
even have a
radial
ship.
area.
We even have a ship in game that has lore about it being able to be shrunken down so small that it can be put inside someone's body.
So what you didn't realize is, the big Vex waterfall, the Vex Milk waterfall that we fly past in the Insight Terminus.
Yeah.
Directly behind that waterfall is actually a cave that goes right to the core of Nessus. We just never looked behind it. It was there the whole time. Um, and so
God
we
damn it.
we leave the Infinite Forest. We're in the core of Nessus, and we see the conductor experimenting with Vex. And so like they pull them out, and they're like modern, I want to say Hezen Vex, and they drop them in, and they pull them out again, and they're Soul Primeval Vex, and it's like, oh shit,
Yeah.
she's like
Yeah.
able to like change their biological structure of their Vex metals, right? That's fucking nuts. And Satan Osiris, I forget who said it, but one of them calls out, they're like, Lakshmi, and I'm like, Lakshmi, what the fuck? And so
Yeah.
this woman turns around, this exo woman who has like Vex adornments on her head, and she does look like Lakshmi, but she doesn't look exactly like Lakshmi. She looks like Lakshmi's sister, type of thing. And so
Boy, does
Lakshmi,
she sound like Latchme though.
yeah, and that she does. And so then Lakshmi reveals herself to actually be Maya Sundaresh. So it's like, okay, so Lakshmi too is probably like an old model of Exo, and Maya Sundaresh uses a similar model of Exo frame, and her jaw actually like moves. It's like kind of creepy, but
Yeah.
I liked it.
Yeah, it's cool.
I like that it was creepy like that. And so she starts talking about how what she's doing with the Echo is she's going to utilize the Vex to like revitalize humanity. And I really like this, and this is what I was starting to say before. How the Vex are so small, they're individual pieces just calling out for a leader, calling out for a conductor. They were aimless now, so now they have her, and she's basically going to use them to do what they've always been doing, which is to like rewrite the entire galaxy in Vex image.
Yeah.
And she sees that as kind of like, now it's kind of like through her eyes though, and it's like a mercy killing where it's like, and because of this, we all get to live. I'm going to transform humanity into the Vex as well, and I'm going to be the ruler of it. So it's like, I really like this villain. I really like what she's going for. I like that motivation. And
Yeah.
what I was saying is, I hope we don't just like kill her in Act 3 and then be done with her, because I like this. I like this being the new reason that we fight the Vex. I like the idea that the conductor is now behind the Vex going forward for some time.
Same here. I like that idea. But there is a thing that I just now thought of. What is that like? So there's a network of X.
Mhm.
Where does that leave Asher?
Well, he should be at this point, with this type of like analogy, he should kind of be like a virus in the machine.
Yeah, because he figured out how to break the matrix and uh, write himself into the code or something. Like he figured it out.
Yeah.
Well, we figured that out with the Excalibur or something
Well, no,
somehow.
because also he should be well, I mean, I know it's just my theory, but he should still be turning into Brachion. So I wonder if it's
Yeah,
gonna.
I like that theory too. By the way, that's funny. Like the very idea of Asher being Brachion
Yeah.
is hilarious to me.
Time is fluid here. What was that? What was that story? Little
That's
people?
funny. Maybe. Oh,
Other people.
that is that. Yeah, other people.
Other people by
That
Neil
is
Gaiman.
that is funny now that you bring that up because one other thing that I took note of, and when we were like diving down into the deep versions of Nessus, and I was
Hmm.
looking at a lot of the architecture, and then you do that, sometimes you're playing and then you remember like what Asher said about what lake, like when the
Yeah.
ghost is like, what lake? And Asher's like, you should be coming out upon a big lake. And like the lake wasn't there when we got there, but
Yeah.
Asher's like, dude, there was a lake. There's a huge freaking lake.
Yeah.
And yeah, there's that whole funny moment. But when we're diving down into the middle of the core of Nessus, we're passing what is seemingly like lakes of
Mm.
radiolaria or
I mean,
radiolaria or
that's kind of
whatever.
where Maya was, right? Although
Yeah,
Asher was on Io, not
right,
on
right, right.
Nessus.
That's what I'm saying. Like, but like, and it's in a parallel story. You're kind of
Hmm.
seeing what maybe Asher had seen, architecturally wise or whatever the
I'm.
word is.
It's hard. I wish that I could go back and confirm, or that I could at least direct people to go back and confirm. But as you're falling into the pit to fight Brachion, I'm pretty sure if you look up, there's a lake. Pretty sure.
Really?
Yeah, I remember there being like a thing about it where it was like the lake is still there. It's just like the geometry of the arena has shifted. And so like the lake is there. It's just when he approached, it was from a different perspective.
Huh.
I vaguely remember that. I don't know why. But I mean we can't go back and confirm, so it's like the fuck, you know?
Bastards.
Yeah.
That's one thing I hate about live service games. That's one thing I hate about this. You can't
I
go
mean
back and play things the way they were originally.
yeah. It is
I
the
can
reason
I
to hate
can
it.
I can boot up Xbox 360 and play Halo Reach exactly how it was, with all of its quirks and stupid things that were broken in it, and experience it exactly how it was made.
Yeah.
I can go back and play whatever game that was ever a physical hard copy and experience it in its horrible way, like ET on Atari. I mean, you know what I mean?
Don't go
It's
back
just,
and play that.
I'm just saying, like, there it exists, right? It exists in its original form, but where in the hell is Destiny's, missions and countless things that they've created
Hmm.
in their original forms? You can't
Yeah.
even go play Destiny 1 in its original form. It's completely different from September 9th, 2014.
Well, if there ever is a Destiny 3, I hope that's something that they incorporate because I think they have to understand how sick of that people are.
Yeah.
Like and to take it a step further, uh they should make patrol spaces with eras. So
Ooh,
like
that's
they
cool.
have
Yeah.
they have the Dark Below era of the Cosmodrome where
Yeah.
the knights spawn still to get your husks of the pit, and
Well, let
the
me ask
Taken
you this.
King
Let me ask you this.
era.
Let me ask you this. What if, hypothetically, what if tomorrow they suddenly announce, hey, it's 10-year anniversary. So what we've done is we've saved
No, whatever it is, it's not happening.
we've saved everything that ever happened to Destiny, and we've created this huge collection. And you can go buy it right now for $100 and go play everything that you ever played before.
Okay, what's your question?
Would you buy it?
I feel like there's a part of me that's kind of obligated to buy it, but I wouldn't enthusiastically buy it.
Yeah, yeah.
I would buy it because of things like I just said, like put my money where my mouth is, right? I wish I could go back and experience this again. It's like they're like, you can. I'll be like, well, I asked for it, so yeah.
Yeah,
And that's
yeah.
it's lame that I'd have to buy it again. It's really fucking lame that I'd have to buy it again. But like just for an archival purpose of if they were like, and this is never getting updated. It's like here you go. It's like Rise of
or
Iron,
like or like you could
Destiny
just
1.
download it onto your, you know, whatever, and it would just always be there.
Well, I mean, like just give us like literally a guardian with everything unlocked.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Just give
Curate
me a base
curate
guardian with it.
curate some
Yeah,
good rolls on legendaries and give us one of every legendary, and it's just like here you go.
that's
This is it,
hilarious.
and you just get to play everything, and then they could have like a curated playthrough style where it's like um you're only allowed these weapons at this point in the game type of thing, where it's like, oh, you didn't do the raid yet, you don't get the raid weapons because they're for post raid. Or you
Yeah,
could just be like, I don't care about that, I just want to use my raid weapons, and they're like, all right, then just use raid weapons, that's cool too.
that's funny.
Fuck it. And since it's a standalone, you can just use all the exotics at once too. Why not?
Yeah, there you
That
go.
would actually be
I'm
really
gonna equip.
cool.
I'm gonna equip every single exotic
Yeah.
at the same time.
That would genuinely be pretty cool. I don't think it would have longevity, but it would be pretty cool.
It would just be
But
something.
for
Just
our for archival purposes, I would, be obligated to purchase that.
yeah, I would definitely go back and play some stuff. That's for damn
Yeah, I
sure.
mean, I
Because
probably would too. I'd give the whole game another playthrough if I could just, here you go, here are the missions. Yeah, that was fun.
yeah,
I got to do it again.
yeah. Remember when Destiny had zero in it, and you could just like roam around the Cosmodrome, and there were like enemies were very sparse, and they only came within so much time. Like now we're spoiled because enemies pop up, literally within seconds of the last time. But if you remember in D1 when we first played, you would kill all the enemies in an area, and then they wouldn't respawn for like minutes, like many
Yeah.
minutes later.
No, you wanna know what I was actually just thinking of today? It's funny that you say that you bring it back to D1 like that. For those who don't know, we get lore entries now, kind of just for playing the mission or for finding collectibles and things like that. And there was some of that in Destiny 1 too. You'd find the dead ghosts. That was really exciting. Every new season,
Yeah,
you'd have dead ghosts to go find, or expansion or whatever they would call it. And that was really fun to go find the new dead ghosts and stuff. However, in base Destiny 1, to get all of the Grimoire cards, you also had to do the there was like what are now effectively, oh my god, what are they called? What are the triumphs called?
um,
Are they just called triumphs?
triumphs.
Oh,
Yeah, they're called
damn it.
triumphs.
You had to do Grimoire and triumphs were kind of rolled together. And
Yeah, that was kind of
so
shitty.
as it is now, right? It's like, okay, use this gun
Yeah.
so many times. There was a triumph for killing. Just gonna throw out a number that I think is reasonable and probable: 200 hydras. Hydras were not a common spawn. Hydras were extremely rare in base Destiny 1. And the way that people got that is they would go on Mars outside the entrance to the Black Garden, and they would camp out up on a cliff that looked over the entrance, and they'd wait for the Hydra to spawn, and they'd pop it with a sniper, and they'd pop the rest of the ads, because the Hydra would not respawn if there were any ads left.
Any
And then
ads?
what
Yeah, yeah,
happens
yeah.
and then what happens is you miss a goblin. They're hiding behind a rock, and you're sitting there. You wait your 5 minutes for the Hydra to respawn, and it's not back yet. And you're like, "What the fuck happened?"
That's a
And then
son
the
of a bitch way
goblin
to play
walks
the
out.
game. Yeah.
Oh,
It's funny.
it
It's
was
funny you bring up
painful.
that spot. That spot right there was probably the most farm spot, just because, like, remember when we had to get resource materials and relic iron,
Oh,
and we had to
yeah.
farm it, and so there was this farm path where if you did like a huge circle around the entire area, you could come back, and then you'd
I
be
got
more
really
relic
lucky.
iron.
I got really lucky with relic iron.
Did you?
Wait, was it relic iron? What am I thinking of for the swords?
Yeah, it was relic iron. Yeah,
No,
relic
because
iron.
there was another material on Mars that wasn't relic iron.
No, there was Hadium flakes on the Dreadnought, relic iron, spin metal on the Cosmodrome, and then what was the other one that we had to get for the sword?
That's what I'm saying.
Um, I think there was one other thing. I don't think we had to get data lattice for the sword, did we?
Okay, well,
That's another thing. Freaking Shax was making our sword for us. Anyway,
Okay, well, no, because this quest, this Google is telling me that you just had to get 25 relic iron. That's not right. Because it was like
no, that
it was like a more rare item. Relic iron was just everywhere. You could just go get relic iron whenever you wanted.
well, maybe it wasn't originally 25 because I want to say you had to like you had to work hard to get that shit.
I mean, I remember it being the legendary swords.
Oh yeah. Yeah, because they were first legendary and then you made them exotic. Is that how that worked?
Yeah, you would get the arc, soul, or void edge, and then
That's right.
you
Yeah.
need the next thing. Oh my god, remember Arms Days with
Yeah.
Banshee?
Yeah.
That's fucking
I lived
wild.
for those.
Yeah. Of all the things they should bring back, that is certainly one of them.
Well, we're 3 minutes away from time.
Yeah. We should probably call it. It's gonna kill me if I can't find it. Um Either way. So yeah. That's gonna be it for us this week. If you want to find more of us, you can find us on Twitter at Loose Canon Show. I have mod view up, so I don't know actually where it is. If it's up here, if it's down there, if it's over there. Um, our pin
We'll
tweet
actually be
has
on Mars. We'll be on Mars farming relic iron.
yeah, yeah, right. Um, our pin tweet has links to everywhere that you can find us. This episode will go up on YouTube and Spotify, which should put it out everywhere as well. Everywhere that is still around as well, because all my podcast apps keep collapsing and I really don't want to use Spotify.
Oh
Um,
no.
I've been complaining about that for weeks now. Next week, our next show will be on the 22nd, September 22nd, and it will probably be about Act 3. So we'll find out if we're fighting Maya Sundaresh for an extended period of time, like I hope we are. Kind of like not Lakshmi, kind of like Savathun.
Yeah, I
I
really
think
hope
that
so
would,
too, man. I really hope that's what's happening.
I think that would be cool.
It it really almost needs to happen in a way that will satiate people because
I found it.
if it's just like here, go put this key in this hole and then she's dead, then it's gonna be annoying.
So about the swords, I found it in a Reddit post. They don't say what it's called, but they say that you have to collect around 150 materials, so relic iron, as well as that in getting around 150, you should get, because it wasn't like a guaranteed, but the averages of it, you should get the 10 special relic irons, whatever they were
Oh,
called.
that's right.
I
Yeah,
was
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah, yeah, yeah.
And the reason I remember it is I remember I was super lucky. I got it in like half an hour, and my friend
You
spent like
lucky
2 hours just grinding it. Like I'm not getting them, and I'm like, I don't know
Yeah,
what
I
to
was
tell you,
there
man.
for
This
like an
fucking
hour,
sword's
dude.
awesome.
Yeah. I got Bolt Caster and I loved it. That was my favorite.
I always liked Dark Drinker. And no, everyone's like
Yeah.
Dark Drinker sucks. Dark Drinker's awful. And then Wrath of the Machine, and I'm like Dark Drinker's the
Yeah,
fucking best,
it was the
man.
best one. Yeah. It ended up being the best.
Oh, good times.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's gonna be it for us this week. Did I say everything? I said everything, right?
Yeah.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.